What's up everyone, we're here with Seth Dunlap, who is a talented filmmaker. And today we're going to discuss some filmmaking tips and techniques that you can keep in mind next time you shoot video. And even if you don't shoot video, a lot of these tips can apply to photography as well. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is how you approach a scene.
Yeah, I mean, how I approach a scene is I really try to not overcomplicate it. For me, I really enjoy lighting that's really simple. So I'll walk into a room, I'll turn off the lights, and I'll just see where the light is pouring in, and I'll move my subject accordingly to where it makes it really easy to light them.
So one thing that I think I noticed newer filmmakers kind of make a mistake doing is varying the screen direction.
So like the character will go left to right, and then like the next shot they'd be going right to left when they really should be just advancing and going the same direction.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, as you're progressing through your film, a fun like old film trick that like even Wes Anderson will do is he'll have the subject move from left to right, and it shows progression. So the left of the frame, your subject is moving, and let's say like your subject forgot a jacket. It's really cool to like show them regressing and moving back from right to left in the frame, and it's just a fun film trick to show first off context that they're moving throughout the film, and then secondly B-roll to transition from one scene to another.
Keep it up, we can work it out. You can move around and I'll make the sounds. Keep it up, we can work it out. We can work it out. We can work it out. Keep it up, we can work it out. You can move your mouth and I'll quiet down. Keep it up, we can work it out. We can work it out. We can work it out.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the left side of the screen versus the right side of the screen? Like why you would put a subject on the left side versus the right side?
Oh yeah, for sure. So let's say I'm filming a documentary, and it's a mom, she just lost her child and she feels really trapped, and she can't really move past to the next part of like her story or where she's going in her life. In that situation, I would frame my subject to the left part of the screen. As they're moving through their story and they can see that there is a silver lining and there is goodness to come, I will frame them to the right, and it shows that there's just a lot of space between them and the end of the frame. And another example of how this can be helpful in filmmaking is you can put your hero to the right side of the frame where he's like very stoic, and you could put your villain or your bad guy on the left side.
So there's a lot of cool like psychological kind of tricks you can think about when framing your shot.
Yeah, and I like thinking about that for photography too. Just be mindful of like where you put your subject on the left or the right.
So one thing that may be tempting for newer filmmakers is if your camera is super awesome at slow motion, it can be like really tempting to just shoot everything in slow motion. Can you talk about why like that might not be the best idea?
Yeah, so this is definitely an example that I have failed learning. Whenever I got my Red camera, it was super cool when I was like, I can shoot 300 frames a second, this is crazy. But I quickly realized that you need to be really intentional, even about how you shoot it and like the frame rate that you select. I realized that it was really hard to convey a true story through shooting everything in slow motion. And if I need pickup shots, I will take my subject outside and get a shot of them walking in 60 frames, tell the story better, and then like make it look dynamic and cinematic with the slow motion, but also make sure that I have a story. I would say one tip that's really helpful for me whenever I'm shooting is to craft the story first and then shoot B-roll second. With the A7S II, it's a great camera. It shoots 24 and 30 frames a second at 4K. Whenever I shoot B-roll, I typically shoot that at 4K 30 frames a second with the A7S because I can slow it down to 80% and I have that beautiful 4K image, but also a little bit of slow motion that I can play with in post or even stabilize it or zoom in and reframe it.
Sure, since you're editing in like a 24 frame timeline, that 30 frames a second will give you that little extra room to play with.
So when you're setting up a scene, say of like 10 shots, what would you say the percentage of real time to slow motion is?
The action of what they're doing is going to be in slow motion, and then the story is going to be real time. So I would say it's probably 60% real time, 40% slow motion.
So we all know the dreaded phrase of fix it in post. Can you explain why you don't want to have to rely on doing that and things that you can do when shooting to avoid having to fix a lot of things in post?
Yeah, first off, I'm terrible at doing any Adobe crazy visual effects things. So vintage filmmaking techniques really inspire me. I mean, back in the 40s and 50s, they didn't have like all these amazing CGI effects that they can do nowadays, and sometimes it really throws me out of the story. So whenever I walk into a room, I'll see like candles that are burning, or wine glasses, or small things that I can shoot through to where I can use the environment in a room, and it's a fun play on like using what's in the room to like make your films more dynamic. Another technique that I practice is shooting the best I can straight out of camera. So with an A7S, I will shoot no auto white balance. I will dial it in for every single scene, and I will place my subject in places where it looks dynamic and cinematic without even having to use lighting. And I'll shoot the best out of camera, so it just makes the whole editing process easier, and I don't have a backlog that I have to worry about.
So like for picture profiles, would you like not shoot straight flat and get the most dynamic range, but like maybe get it closer to where the final product will be?
So I'm gonna have a lot of filmmakers look down on this, but I actually shoot PP off. So it gives me like a beautiful straight out of camera image to where I can just apply like 1 or 2 LUTs and it looks like really good. So whenever I'm shooting a wedding, I'll just shoot with one camera, 1 or 2 lenses, and I'll shoot the best I can straight out of the camera.
Recap. Use natural light when possible and turn off tungsten interiors to avoid mixed color temperatures. Keep the direction of your subject's movement consistent based on camera position. Consider your subject's position in the frame and the different moods it can elicit. Capture the story in real time and get the pickup shots in slow motion. Use the environment around you to add depth, reflect light, and make your shots more dynamic.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to Seth's channel if you want to see more of his work. Gently caress that thumbs up button and subscribe if you aren't already, and we'll see you next week. 1, 2, 3.